This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. I'm excited about a lot of players on the Cleveland Browns for a lot of different reasons, right? It could be young players that I see something in and think that they could make a step in their development that would be very exciting to watch. It could be players who are hitting that third to fourth year mark where they're really starting to figure it out and they take their final step into stardom. It could be players who are stars or have been stars that bounce back to being stars. It could be people who are already at the top of their position group that find a way to get a little better. My whole point is there's a lot of reasons for a lot of different levels of players on why you would be excited about them coming in to 2024. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to give you my 5 Browns that I am certifiably hyped about. We're going to start with Cedric Tillman. Cedric Tillman is somebody that I was skeptical of going into this season, simply because he had issues that I felt like could really derail a young career in a situation like he was in. For those of you who don't remember, Cedric Tillman had a little bit of a problem being exactly where quarterbacks expected him to be. Now, there are a number of reasons this could happen to a young wide receiver, and the reasons aren't as simple as some people may present them as, right? Like, I think this got presented as Cedric Tillman didn't study the playbook. I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's that Cedric Tillman is incapable or did not study the playbook. I think that's a very uncharitable assumption of him. I think it's a lot more complicated than that. First, Cedric Tillman came from a system in Tennessee, the Josh Heupel system, which is very, very unconventional. I mean, they line up guys basically on the sideline. They don't run real routes there. It's not a system that would adequately prepare you to walk in day one and master a NFL playbook, right? It's no Ohio State playbook. It's no Nick Saban, Alabama playbook where they get you ready for the pros as well as get you to the top level of college football. So Cedric Tillman was already getting that hurdle to start his NFL career. He gets thrown into a Browns offense that is a bit old school. So he went from this super high fashion, new school Josh Heupel offense, and then you get drafted to a team that's pretty much at that time sticking to old school West Coast principles, which can be a bit overcomplicated when it comes to the language that surrounds the plays, right? Like these West Coast offenses are where the very famous super long play calls come from, right? Where you get like a protection, you get an option, you get a route combo, you get a alternate route combo, and you get a bunch of things in the play call, like a whole sentence of a play call, and like maybe 30% of that sentence matters to you. So that's another thing that Cedric Tillman had to learn. And then if Deshaun checks to something, and that changes up the route concept, but that's in the play call somewhere, you just got to kind of dig it out. Now, we don't know exactly how Kevin Stefanski structures his play call, but it's probably something similar to that. So there's an adjustment there. So you're going from a super not NFL system where you're probably looking at a sideline postcard and getting one of two options that you can run from this sideline. And it's super simplified and it's super dumbed down and it's super basic, and it works in college football because that kind of thing can work in college football. Then you get to the NFL and you get drafted to a team that is really doing the NFL playbook stuff, right? All of the advanced calculus that is involved with a NFL play call is now what Cedric Tillman's doing. You take that with the fact that he played with multiple veteran quarterbacks. So not only did he have Deshaun Watson in there, PJ Walker, at one point it was DTR in there, Jeff Driscoll, and then Joe Flacco. So you deal with 5 different quarterbacks going on in your rookie season. All 5 of these quarterbacks got different hand signals, got different checks that they like to do, got different ways they want you to run different routes. It's different depths, got all of these different things that you're expected to learn and keep in mind. Last season, you were looking at a postcard and running 2 routes. And that's a layer that Cedric Tillman has to deal with. And I think the weight of all of that took its toll on a rookie player where he just struggled to keep up. And when you think about it through Cedric Tillman's perspective, it makes sense. And it's why I try to, in every way, never assume that the issue was that somebody was being lazy or somebody is not capable of learning things. I find that to not really be the case most of the times. And with Cedric Tillman, when you look into it, it seems like a lot of what happened his rookie year really went down to that. So he gets here, he comes to camp, mini camp. He needs to have a big mini camp. He needs to get the trust of his quarterbacks. He needs to get the trust of the coaching staff. And he does that. He balls out in camp. He balls out during training camp. He balls out during the preseason. And he earns a lot of respect along the team. And I think that's something to be excited about. The growth is something to be excited about. The fact that a player that talented navigated that mental hurdle and seems to have come out of it on the other side much better is very encouraging. Now, again, it's going to get a little bit more difficult to keep this progress when the play calls are real, when the crowd noise is real, when the pressure is real, when the games are real, when Deshaun's checking and he's changing stuff for real, when he's going to eventually throw a ball, you're going to run a route not exactly how he wants it, and he gets mad at you. You got to adjust how you want to do it. When all of those things are real, the progress is going to be a bit harder to keep. But the progress that he's made, I think, is significant, and I think is worth being excited about. The second Brown I'm excited about is Jamari Thrash. Now, a few years ago, we were talking a lot about a young man named Anthony Schwartz. And Anthony Schwartz was a great athlete, a great sprinter, who did not have good football instincts or has ever demonstrated the ability to play football at a high level. His whole career was based on the fact that he had the potential to play football at a high level because of physical gifts that he possessed. But his being on a college football team, his being on a NFL team were solely based on potential, not because he was that good of a football player. And no disrespect to Anthony Schwartz, that's just simply the case. We've all seen it. Jamari Thrash is a bit of the opposite of that to me. When I see Jamari Thrash, the first thing I think is, that is what a wide receiver who's good at football looks like. He's physical. He's strong. He knows when to cut routes. He knows how to win. When he gets the ball in his hand, he goes north. He cuts up and down. Like, he just looks like a guy who's going to be good at football. Now, how far does that take him? I don't want to get over enthusiastic about that. We did this with DTR. We did this with DPJ. We've done this a lot where we see promise in a young receiver, and the next thing we know, we think we found the next Julio Jones in the 5th round. That's just not going to be the case. Jamari Thrash, I think, has the potential to be a lot of different things, but I'm not going to put that burden of what I expect him to be or how big of a steal I expect him to be. I'm going to treat this like Martin Emerson, where if he continues to show me that he's going up all of these levels, well, then I'm going to get excited for each of the appropriate levels because I think he's going to be someone who blows away his draft position as a 5th or 6th round pick. I think he would have been an earlier pick if he didn't transfer to Louisville. I think that transfer season really hurt him because people made a lot of assumptions about it being the ACC of why he wasn't as productive instead of his injuries. But still, nonetheless, I'm a big fan of Jamari Thrash. I think he's going to do very well for this team going forward. Let's talk about the third guy, JOK. I have been beating the drum for JOK before he was even a Cleveland Brown. When he was in Notre Dame, I fell in love with a linebacker that seemed like at times he came from the future. And it has been amazing to see JOK get closer and closer to what he demonstrated he could be at Notre Dame. But see, the reason I'm hyped about JOK isn't because he has realized his potential. The reason I'm hyped about JOK is because I don't think he has showed that he has reached his potential yet. I think he has more to achieve, and I think he could achieve that from being on the field more. I think JOK is somebody who still has the potential to be a factor in the pass game much more than he's been so far in his NFL career. When you talk about JOK, you talk about a guy who can dominate and get you a ton of TFLs, but not necessarily somebody who can be a pass breakup guy, a disruptor in the passing game. And with the Browns and how they like to play defense, having a disruptor in the passing game at the linebacker position would be an absolute game changer. I mean, teams are already struggling with going up against Martin Emerson and Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome. Could you imagine if you had to deal with the linebacker on top of the safeties that the Browns can throw you and then Myles Garrett there somewhere? It's going to be something interesting to see. He's going to get more snaps. He's going to get more opportunities. I am excited about the potential that somebody like JOK has coming up this season. The fourth guy that I'm excited about, and this might be the controversial one. This might be the one where people get mad at me. This might be the one that sets the comment section ablaze. This might be the one where people call me names for saying. I'm excited about Deshaun Watson. I said it. I think he's going to be good this year. I look back at what he did last year, and I'm encouraged. I look at the offense that they're moving to. I see the things that they have showed in the preseason. I see the things that Ken Dorsey is known for bringing. I think about the role that Ken Dorsey's in and how that's really a great role for him to succeed in. And I just think to myself, this feels right. It feels like they got things right about Deshaun Watson. He has a wide receiving core around him that's 6 deep. It's not the most top-heavy wide receiving core, but it's strong at the top with Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore, or, you know, young guys like Cedric Tillman, Jamari Thrash. I like what they have in that wide receiver room. Even somebody like David Bell, who's more of a utility block and then catch some short pass guy. I like what he does. He's a smart guy. Like, Watson's going to find him on some scramble plays for a couple of big plays. I think that. And then I think about the tight ends, Jordan Atkins and David Njoku. I mean, they're perfect matches for what he likes to do. And if the Browns add anybody in the time that I record this video versus when it comes out, then that'll only be a positive because I really like what the Browns have. I think Deshaun Watson's going to be good in this offense. I think he's finally doing stuff that he's comfortable with in this offense. And I think that's going to make a world of difference. I think you're going to see a comfortable Deshaun Watson. You're going to see a playmaking Deshaun Watson. You're going to see a Deshaun Watson who has spent the last 2 years in Kevin's system. So if he does have to be a lot more conservative to win a game, he can do that. Like, I think he can add what he did well in Houston bring a lot of that to the table, the big playmaking, but also not lose that ability that he gained over last year to manage a game. I think there's potential for Deshaun Watson to be that playmaker and be the game manager he needs to be. And if he could be that, that's exactly what the Browns need to win, right? The Browns need to win a Super Bowl, a quarterback who, if it's a shootout, can keep up with somebody who's on the level of a Pat Mahomes or a Joe Burrow or a Lamar Jackson, right? That's on that level. We can keep up with them. That's all we ask. But that's not going to be every game you play in the playoffs, right? You're also going to need a quarterback who understands when it's time to manage a game and can do that. And he's going to have to do that. The great quarterbacks don't just win by gunslinging alone. The great quarterbacks don't just win by game management alone. The great quarterbacks can do both. Tom Brady could do both. Pat Mahomes can do both, right? The ones who can't do both are the ones that win far less than you would assume they could. So with Deshaun, if you want the Browns to get to that level, he has to do that. And I think he's been equipped to do that. And I think it feels like things are aligning, at least from a structural standpoint, for the Browns offense, for Deshaun to have a strong year in 2024. I really think that. Myles Garrett is another player I'm hyped about. And you might say, hey, Quincy, how can you be hyped about Myles Garrett? I mean, I get it. Myles Garrett is good, but like what? Where else is there to go with he just won Defensive Player of the Year. NFL front offices, 70% of them are saying he's the best edge in the NFL. Hands down, he's getting all the first place votes. Where else can Myles go for it? I think there's so much more Myles can go for. Now, the sack numbers, I think, are going to always be hard to attain because he is Myles Garrett, and teams are going to do everything in the world to avoid getting sacked by Myles Garrett. And that's going to have a massive impact on games just by him existing. But I don't think teams going to try him, right? And in order to get 20, 25 sacks, teams got to be willing to try you. And once you reach the status that Myles has had, it's going to be hard to get 20 because I don't feel like you're going to get the opportunities because teams will they would rather cut their playbook in halves than allow Myles Garrett an opportunity to potentially sack you. So think the sack numbers aren't going to be there, but the impact can. Myles made tremendous strides as a run defender. I think there's more growth that can happen there. Myles made tremendous strides as a screen defender. I think there's more growth that can happen there. Myles isn't really known for batting down passes, but he got stronger at that at the end of last year once he caught on to the fact that teams weren't going to play him straight up. So I think that's something that he can even evolve further. We all saw him literally hop over a human being, two human beings, to block a field goal last year. If he uses that athletic ability to clog these passing lanes that he's already rushing simply because he's Myles Garrett and they don't want Myles Garrett to get to the quarterback, so they're going to throw this ball quickly. If he can clog those passing lanes and you have somebody like Shelby Harris in the middle who's also pretty great at doing that with the bat downs and everything else, you have a player his impact on the game is going to be tremendous. Some of the highest impact that you ever seen. Now, it's going to break some people's brains because their brains seem to only operate on what are the sack numbers. But to anybody else that's willing to watch those games, he's going to put up a lot of dominant performances, and I think he's got even more room to grow as a defender. So those are the 5 Browns that I'm hyped about. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.